All right, Central Georgia, good evening. This is meteorologist Ansley Parker coming to you live now because we do have another severe thunderstorm warning that has been issued for Jasper, Morgan, and Putnam counties this afternoon. So this is a look at that storm right now. It is set to expire at 9:30 p.m. tonight. And this comes, if I take you guys out, after we've been watching this line sweep across most of North Georgia for this entire late evening and into this overnight hours here, and that is going to continue, as you can see, kind of making its way down towards us. Still a few areas of warned thunderstorms here. This area just south of the metro right here is definitely making its way towards us over the next couple of minutes, so we could see that possibly in the next few minutes making its way into what looks like it could be heading towards parts of Butts County, Lamar County, maybe even Spalding as well. So definitely watching that one as well. But the warned storm for us here in Central Georgia is this one here, again for Jasper, Morgan, and Putnam counties. So the biggest concern that I'm seeing here from the National Weather Service that we have been watching all day with these storms sweeping past North Georgia, is how high these wind speeds are really picking up. So if this storm is warned, that does mean it has winds up to 60 miles per hour within it. Now it's a very small area, extremely isolated, really kind of almost only sitting over here on top of Shady Dale. But again, these wind speeds are very strong. We've been seeing reports all day in the National Weather Service chat of trees being down, power lines being taken down, and also just a lot of lightning in these storms too. So it's also struck transformers. We did also get a report earlier of a house in North Georgia that got struck by lightning. So right now, those are my main concerns. It does look like this storm is sort of joining with a few of the cells over here to the west of it. We could see parts of Jasper County here being affected that aren't necessarily outlined in the polygon, as this does sort of start to join with these other cells again here towards Monticello, Shady Dale, making its way over towards Eatonton and Stanfordville in the next couple of minutes. Again, still very isolated, but we're going to pay attention to these cells that it does seem to be joining with here right now. Let me just make sure I'm not getting anything further from the National Weather Service here. All right. So again, yes, still right over here towards Shady Dale. I'll still take you guys out big picture just so you can kind of see this line making its way again towards our northern counties. And a few cells that have popped up to the west of us here in Central Georgia haven't quite made their way over to our viewing area, just to the west of Butler. Over there you can start to see some of those cells beginning to dissipate. So that's good news. Hopefully this line continues to weaken as it heads towards us, but we definitely could see a few more severe thunderstorm warnings be issued, especially for our counties most to the north here. Now let's check in and see if they do have any reports of hail at the moment. Give me 1 second to flip over to that. Does look like they may have a little bit of hail here, but it does look to be just shy of an inch. When you start seeing that orange color, that means we're not quite at an inch yet, so still shy of quarter-sized hail. It's about 7/10 of an inch in diameter right now, so I wouldn't say that's necessarily the main threat, but certainly watching this to make sure it doesn't get any bigger and become more of a problem within this storm at the moment. And we'll flip back over to our reflectivity. Again, I mentioned this a few minutes ago, but my main real concern here with this storm is how fast these wind speeds are going. So I do have reports of wind speeds up to 60 miles per hour here in the National Weather Service chat. And that really is strong enough winds to do some damage. Again, maybe take down some trees, likely also maybe some power lines. And with all this lightning that we're seeing, that's also one of my main concerns, just how many lightning strikes we are starting to get in just this short amount of time. Again, there's some storms behind it that are also looking pretty robust as well that could be adding to this severe thunderstorm warning as it kind of joins towards it. Give me a second and I will put this in motion one more time for you all here. So that's sort of the track it's making. Again, sitting right now over Shady Dale, but these joined cells that are starting to pop up to the west of it, making their way towards Monticello and Eatonton and Stanfordville in the next couple of minutes, and starting to grow a bit. So you can start to see those cells even to the west of it too, starting to pop up outside of that polygon as well. So the polygon is really where we're focused in. That's likely where our wind speeds are the highest, where we're seeing the highest impacts from the severe thunderstorm warning. But again, Still want to pay attention to these areas that are popping up just outside of that border, because it does look like these cells are beginning to join that region just a little bit. I also do want to pay attention to this cell here just behind our warning right now over Covington, sitting parts of Newton County right now. That's going to be sweeping over this same warned region here in Jasper, Putnam, and Morgan counties over the next couple of minutes, and it does seem to be growing quite a bit in size as it makes its way over here. If you're over there on I-20 in this region, also dumping a lot of rain on the roads at this time, so that's definitely something important to pay attention to. I'll take you sort of larger scale so you can get a better idea of what I'm talking about here. So definitely paying attention to that, as that it's sort of part of that line that's making its way into central Georgia. We do want to pay attention to that as it sweeps across our area, just because that's when we can start to see a few more severe thunderstorm warnings be issued here in the next couple of minutes. Again, if you're just joining us, I'm talking a lot about the wind speeds within these storms too. Again, winds are up to 60 miles per hour, and as this line has swept its way across North Georgia, really had lots of reports of trees down on the roads, power lines being taken down, and even lots of objects or even houses being struck by lightning. So I definitely want you all to be aware of those threats. That's essentially why they have issued a severe thunderstorm warning for this specific cell as well. But again, as this whole line makes its way into central Georgia here, we certainly could see a few more robust storms across the area, even if they're not warned. I do want to mention that too. You can see this cell here making its way past Lawrenceville, the one we're talking here about over Covington right now. That one is not warned, but certainly has lots of lightning. You can see those very high reflectivity values, which means that we're seeing very high rainfall rates and also maybe potentially even some hail in the next couple of minutes too. So even if it's not necessarily warned, that usually just means the wind speeds aren't at the threshold for a warned storm, but they still certainly are some pretty robust storms as well, as a part of this line, which is why the National Weather Service did have a severe thunderstorm watch over these storms that as they blew past North Georgia. The fact that they haven't extended the watch to us here in central Georgia usually is a good sign, right? Because if they haven't told us that we need to be watching out for these storms as they come through, that's usually a good indication that they think that they may be a little bit less intense as they roll over our area here. And again, we can flip over here to our SPC outlook, because these storms are coming after we have been in a level 2 risk for most of our northeastern counties over here, and that's actually where we're starting to see these cells pop up. So this is a pretty good indication that the SPC was picking up on the chance that we might see some stronger storms in this region over here in Eatonton, Milledgeville, Sparta, and Sandersville as well. So this is sort of the precursor we've had to all of these storms. And again, we watched this line come through from Tennessee earlier today. You can still see some of the remnants of the rain making their way across North Georgia and now pushing further down here into the central Georgia area. So let me zero back in on our specific warning that we're watching here, just to see if there's really been any changes as we've been sitting here talking. And I'll pause this just so we can get a kind of a better idea. Lots of lightning in this storm, very bright over there. I'm assuming where we're starting to get pretty loud as well. That's a whole lot of lightning strikes in a pretty short amount of time. But again, not looking like these cells to the west or the east have really caused our exact polygon area to become any more robust, which is a good thing. It's sometimes when these other cells join in with the one we're watching, that can cause some issues. But still looks like it's sitting right here over Shady Dale, heading towards Monticello, Eatonton, and maybe even pushing towards Lake Oconee outside the polygon here, as well as these cells sort of become joined. It does look like this severe thunderstorm warning here has been extended just shy of our viewing area. So it's been extended 4 counties, Henry County, parts of Spalding County, and just barely touching parts of Butts County as well. So the National Weather Service is certainly watching this storm as it makes its way closer into central Georgia. So that's going to be an area of focus for us as well, just because we do want to pay attention to it. As they're extending that warning, that's usually a good sign that they're picking up on the fact that the strength is going to continue as it pushes closer into our region. Again, this storm here, let me grab my pointer so I can give you guys a better indication of what I'm talking about. This storm here over Covington, still very strong, even though it's not warned. We can see lots of lightning continuing to pop up in this region. When you start to see those really red colors, again, as I mentioned, that's very heavy rainfall coming down right over I-20 over here in Walton County, it looks to be. Yes. Yes, over here in Walton County, lots of rainfall coming down on I-20, so that's something important to pay attention to if you're out on the roads over here. Definitely causes a potential for some flash flooding in this region. But again, our storm here that we're watching in our viewing area still looking okay. Not really looking to be intensifying at the moment. We'll put that back in motion just so we can kind of take a closer look at it once again. Still kind of sitting over the same region, so Shady Dale right now getting a lot of rainfall, potentially. Again, this concern with these storms is that we could see some flash flooding as they're very slow moving and they sort of sit over the same place for a long time. It sort of loses the opportunities of where that rain can go. So that's when we start to be a little bit concerned about flash flooding with these storms. So with the high reflectivity values and how slow they're moving, that is one of my concerns. And again, just the sheer amount of lightning we're seeing and these wind speeds are very, very high. Let me see if I've gotten any more updates from the National Weather Service here about any of these wind speeds. Again, I mentioned this earlier, but if you're just joining us, as these storms swept across North Georgia earlier today, I'll kind of take you big picture again. We did see many reports of trees down, power lines down, just generally blowing up a lot of debris as these storms have blown across the area. So that's definitely important because as they start to enter our viewing area here in central Georgia, that becomes one of the main threats for us as well. You can sort of see this outflow boundary here just ahead of the line. I'll get my pointer out here. That's sort of indicative that we might see a few more thunderstorms popping up ahead of this green line here. That's usually an outflow boundary is essentially a force. And if we have enough energy here and enough moisture, something like this can really push up a few more cells, especially ahead of this region here. So we could see some more cells popping up in this region right over here in the next couple of minutes. But again, definitely still watching the areas that we do have warnings here. Still very slow moving, looking like we are still mostly sitting over Shady Dale, but starting to head towards Monticello over the next couple of minutes. They're likely getting very loud here too. Lots of lightning strikes in this area as well. And I'll sort of give you a bigger picture. I'm seeing some questions about where this is heading. Again, this is just over here in Jasper, Putnam, and Morgan counties at the moment. But again, this storm that's over here towards Peachtree City, let me grab my pointer one more time. This storm over here towards Griffin is heading into Spalding County. We could see some impacts from this storm over here in Butts County as well in the next couple of minutes. Generally in this region past Spalding, I'm talking Pike, Lamar, maybe even Monroe County in the next couple of minutes. So that's kind of where this cell seems to be heading, but again, very slow moving. These storms are sitting kind of over the same area for a long time. So the main threats here are still over here where this storm is warned. And then this storm also moving very slowly, but sort of creeping its way across Jasper and Putnam counties at the moment. Again, not moving super fast. We could see some impacts down here in Baldwin County in the next couple of minutes, Jones County and Baldwin counties in the next few minutes, but likely it's going to take a while to sweep across Jasper and Putnam first. It does look like we are seeing a little bit more lightning in that region as well. So I'm going to go ahead and take us a little bit closer back to our severe thunderstorm warning here. As you can kind of see that cell behind it over in Covington, maybe pushing a little bit more force towards our cell here. Right here, you can sort of see that this cell getting really large and kind of maybe pushing a little bit more energy to the one that we actually are watching in this warning. So what I'm going to pay attention to here is if the National Weather Service is going to extend this warning essentially any further. It does look like they have made a statement about this storm specifically, so give me a second to look. Okay, so essentially the National Weather Service has said that this region here where we're starting to see the cells pop up further to the east, that has some pretty high wind speeds as well. We're talking winds up to 40 to 50 miles per hour. This range inside of our polygon is where we're still seeing winds up to 60 miles per hour. So again, still a bit of a threat as we watch these cells pop up to the west and to the east, but just not quite as strong as our area where we're still sitting under the polygon. That's where our wind speeds are just a tiny bit higher, about 10 miles per hour higher. And again, still watching this storm over here to the east as well as it starts to creep its way into Spalding County here. It does still look to be very strong. And again, we are starting to see a couple of cells pop up ahead of that boundary here, as I was mentioning, maybe seeing a little bit more activity over here towards Peachtree City now that that boundary has pushed its way over here. All right, and I am going to take us out one more time just because a few people are still joining, asking about kind of what's the big picture here. Again, we're just watching this line sweep into the most northern counties here in central Georgia from North Georgia. Other than that, there's really not any other areas that we're watching at the moment. Maybe seeing a few showers over here towards Butler and towards Taylor and Macon counties, but other than that, not necessarily seeing anything that's warranting a warning at this time or really even a cause for concern at the moment. The real threat for the rest of the evening is going to be how this line holds together as it starts to sweep across central Georgia. And models do show that this might weaken as it does push a past, which is good news because hopefully as it goes further south, it doesn't really have as much energy to hold on to and we won't really have to worry about it for as long. But at the moment, it's certainly still packing enough strength to warrant some warnings, especially over here in Jasper, Putnam, and Morgan counties, and then over here just north to our viewing area as well. So again, if you're checking in from any of these other counties here in central Georgia, we're still really focused in on this area up here towards our northeastern counties. And I will show this one more time, but we are in a severe weather risk for today. Again, most of our counties just in that low end level 1 risk, but these areas actually that are seeing some of the most intense thunderstorms right now are in a level 2 risk. So again, that's just meaning that's kind of the areas that are more likely to see storms this evening or a little bit stronger, maybe more likely to see severe thunderstorm warnings. And the rest of the regions still definitely can see some storms, but hopefully not quite as strong. So again, we'll just kind of check back in here, see how things are looking at our specific warnings. Again, it does look like this severe thunderstorm warning that is over here towards the east could definitely be making its way into Spalding County in the next few minutes towards Griffin here. Certainly could make its way all the way to Lamar, but again, this is a very slow moving storm, so not necessarily moving at a very fast pace. So the areas that I'm most focused on that it's heading right now is over here towards Spalding County, over here also in Henry County as well, starting to see that storm make its way across the county lines here. And again, I mean, checking back in on our storm here, still very slow moving. We're still seeing the most lightning and very heavy rain over here towards Shady Dale as well, starting to make its way closer to Monticello also right here. But again, moving very, very slow. So also packing a whole lot of rain into the same regions as it moves its way across. And still watching these cells over here making their way towards Lake Oconee. Maybe if you're out on the lake, this isn't necessarily within our polygon, but I do still want to bring your attention to that just because it is getting closer to the lake and the National Weather Service has given us a special weather statement, which is essentially what I would consider a step down from a severe thunderstorm warning. So severe thunderstorm warnings means that we've had hail reports of at least an inch and seen winds up to 60 miles per hour. Special weather statement means our winds are still very high, about 40 to 50 miles per hour, just not quite at that severe threshold. So I do want to emphasize that these cells here to the east and even this one over here towards the west, still packing some pretty intense winds into the region as well. And maybe we can also pull up our velocity here and just take a look at how things are looking right now. Sort of switching over, again, things are looking okay right now, not really getting a huge indication of rotation from the National Weather Service. So it still looks like our biggest threats are just how fast the winds are moving at this time. But we will continue to watch that. I'm sort of seeing how this switches over in between the two radars that we have here. And again, we can check and see if we've had any more hail over the past few minutes. Does look like we've picked up on another signature here. It does, again, still just shy of an inch, about half an inch in diameter, so not quite sizable enough to be one of my main concerns. I would say that right now the biggest threats are still just how fast these winds are going and how much lightning that we're seeing within this storm. You can see a very concentrated area of lightning over here, mostly in Jasper County, but still in parts of Putnam County as well, towards Monticello and Shady Dale. That's really kind of where these impacts are the highest. Still a pretty strong storm over here in Covington, and you can see that boundary again. We were talking about that earlier with our storm to the east. This can definitely push up some cells when you have an outflow boundary like this. It can sort of act as the force to a few more storms popping up. So that's something to pay attention to as well. But again, I know we have some concerns about what's going on big picture here in central Georgia. So let me just take you out again. to show you that really this is the only area that we're watching at the moment. But again, it is going to continue to sweep further south over the next few hours. Again, very slow moving storms at the moment, not really moving incredibly quickly. So I would say our biggest areas of concern still are over here in Jasper, Putnam, Morgan counties, and then over here towards Spalding, Pike, Lamar, maybe even Butts County as well in the next couple of minutes, just as that polygon kind of scrapes Butts County. But other than that, really, there's nothing else to be concerned about here in central Georgia. These are kind of our main threats, and this line, again, will move its way slowly over the rest of the region. So again, areas closest to these counties here where the polygons are going to be our next areas of concern. So just south of Jasper and Putnam County, Jones, Baldwin, Butts, Spalding, Pike, Lamar. I would say maybe even Monroe down here as well. These storms will be making their way towards you in the next couple of minutes. But again, not as quickly as we'd like them to move. Also just because I don't love how much rain it's packing into one area at the same time. That does cause some concerns for me towards I-20 here, where we've likely seen a lot of rainfall out on the road. So just definitely be careful if you're driving in these regions. Even towards I-75 here, seeing a lot of rainfall over in that region. So I-75 towards Butts and Spalding County, this area definitely could have a lot of rainfall on the way in the next couple of regions. In the next couple of minutes, I mean. So let me just kind of take it out like this as well. Again, I do want to emphasize that this line will be making its way across, but it looks like these are our areas where we will see the highest impacts. So hopefully, as it does sweep across, it will start to weaken in strength as well. Again, yes, Baldwin County could see some impacts here as well. My apologies for that. But right now, again, still our main threat's really just sitting over here in Jasper, Putnam, and parts of Morgan County as well. I'm waiting to see if the National Weather Service does extend this warning any further. Right now, they have not made any more statements about these certain storms. Again, even though this is sort of making its way past Shady Dale here, starting to maybe see like they're coming out of the heaviest rainfall regions. If I flip the lightning off as well, they're starting to kind of come out of the main part of this storm. As you can see here, like the reflectivity values beginning to go down. They'll start to think maybe things are in the clear in the next few minutes here, but this cell behind it is likely going to train over the same region. So over here towards Shady Dale, I do want to emphasize that there is another cell, not necessarily warned. This isn't a severe thunderstorm warning, but it's going to pack a lot more rain. And if we flip the lightning back on, also a lot of lightning back into this region here. So just paying attention here in Jasper County specifically, because it may start to clear out as this storm makes its way past you, but there is another cell behind it. Again, not a warned cell, but still packing some impacts, likely still some winds up to 40 to 50 miles per hour as well. And we are getting some information about the severe thunderstorm watches that they have here in North Georgia. They are seeming to take some of these counties out of the severe thunderstorm watch. So really, again, the threat is really just this line as it passes through. You can see that there's not really anything going on behind it. That's why the National Weather Service has gone ahead and canceled the watch for those counties up here that have already made their way through the line. As this line begins to push through, that's really going to be our main concern. So let me go ahead and see if I can actually time out some of the next impacts for you guys here. I'll go ahead and pause our radar, and I will try to take this out, especially over here, as this storm makes its way from the metro area over to us here. It does appear to be moving at around 25 miles per hour. So again, not an incredibly quick storm, definitely not the fastest that we've seen over the past few days, but we will go ahead and stretch this one out, time out its next areas of impacts here. Looks like over the next hour, again, because it's not a very quick moving storm, Sunnyside, Locust Grove, Griffin, High Falls, Minor, all of those regions starting to see some impacts from the storm over the next hour. Again, not a very fast moving storm, but the winds within the storm are very quick. We're talking up to 60 miles per hour in this region. It does look like this can touch parts here, again, of Lamar and Monroe counties as it starts to make its way to this region. But again, because of how slow moving it is, we're just not sure exactly what it's going to look like as it makes its way into this region. It could really start to fall apart as it comes across, or it could start to still have some momentum and gain some strength. So really, I'm just kind of more focused on the areas that it's about to pass through over here towards Sunnyside, Griffin, Locust Grove. Those are my main areas of focus at the moment, just because of how slow moving this storm is. If it makes its way into these regions over here towards High Falls, it might look like a different type of thunderstorm at that time, especially because this warning is set to expire at 9:45, and it's not expected to pass through these regions until after that expiration time. So our main focus will be these first areas here, seeing how that storm is still a severe thunderstorm warning as it makes its way past here. And we'll see if it does get extended, then we can definitely pay attention to those regions over here as well. All right. And this storm over here, again, still over Morgan, Jasper, and Putnam counties. Again, I did mention this before, but Shady Dale definitely will see some clearing behind this cell in just a few minutes, but another cell is on the way to you, which has lots of rainfall and still lots of areas of lightning as well. So we'll continue to watch that. Definitely don't think you're in the clear. I would hate for you to think that, oh, the rain's gone and you're not seeing as much lightning or maybe hearing as much thunder, and then we still have this cell behind it. Again, my biggest concern here is the wind speeds, just because of the reports that we've seen throughout the day today of trees being down, power lines coming down on the roads, as well as even we've had reports of lightning strikes hitting transformers, as well as lightning strikes even hitting buildings, houses, things like that. So lightning and high wind speeds are definitely one of the things I would pay the most attention to if you're in the polygon here, or if this storm is expected to sweep past your region over the next couple of minutes. But again, going big picture, this is really our only area of focus at the moment. This line will continue to make its way across at a very, very slow pace into the next couple of hours. We'll continue watching impacts from this. Our models do show that things are winding down in the overnight hours here, but we definitely just have to see what this line does. Again, if it holds together as it makes its way across, we have the environment for it to hold together, but some models don't think that it will. Again, our biggest concerns, I would say, is mostly where the National Weather Service has kind of outlined us in that level 2 risk, which is most of our northeastern counties here. I would say sort of northeast of I-75 and I-16 here. That's where the National Weather Service has issued us in a level 2 risk, and every other region here in central Georgia is in a level 1 risk. And it's certainly where we're seeing the most impacts from the severe thunderstorm warnings here. I can actually just go ahead and pop up that graphic for you all, so it's not as confusing as me trying to point. But that is kind of at least the guidance from the National Weather Service of where they think the more intense weather will be. It's over here towards Washington County, Hancock County, Putnam County, Jasper County, and Baldwin County as well, parts of Baldwin County. This line is certainly not the end-all be-all. We can absolutely still see severe thunderstorm warnings past the level 2 threat. We can see severe thunderstorm warnings in the level 1 threat, but this is definitely the area that the National Weather Service has brought our attention to in terms of where we could see the most intense impacts as well. So let me just go ahead and take us back to the specific storms that we are watching as this line does make its way across. Again, I pointed this out a few minutes ago, but definitely we have an outflow boundary here. You can see that green line. All right, so that has actually been extended for these counties here, and that does include parts of central Georgia as well. So this severe thunderstorm warning has been extended for parts of, and give me 1 second because I think our box will not allow me to show all the names, and you can hear our severe thunderstorm beeping going on above me, but this severe thunderstorm warning has been extended into Butts, Clayton, Coweta, Fayette, Henry, Lamar, Meriwether, Monroe, Pike, Spalding, and Upson counties as well. So outlined in this new polygon here, that is the trajectory that the National Weather Service predicts this storm is on its way to make. So these are my next areas of impact here towards Griffin, Zebulon, as well as High Falls, Barnesville, even parts of Forsyth kind of creeping their way into this polygon as well. So that is what the National Weather Service has extended this storm into, which means that they expect that it's going to continue its strength as it makes its way into these regions, which again, it means that we're going to see wind speeds up to 60 miles per hour as the storm kind of makes its way in, as well as maybe some hail up to 1 inch in diameter. And in fact, we can go ahead and see if, all right, so they've gone ahead and canceled the warning behind it, which is good news that, again, as we're mentioning, this is sort of just a part of this one line. There's not necessarily anything going on behind it. You can see all that clearing behind these storms. So after they do sweep their way past the area, the threat for severe weather really will be diminished after that. So our areas of focus are really just where this line is heading next, not necessarily anything behind it other than maybe seeing a few showers afterwards, but certainly the threat for severe weather has passed after this line makes its way through. But again, that has been extended, so heading right now towards Griffin and Spalding County, heading towards Zebulon over here in Pike County, parts of Lamar seeing this storm in the next couple of minutes as well, even parts of Upson County as well, north of Thomaston in the polygon here. Forsyth over here, parts of Monroe County in the polygon as well, and even parts of Butts County here towards Jackson been extended into the polygon as well. So that's kind of the trajectory of where this storm is heading next. Again, we still have this storm over here for Jasper, Morgan, and Putnam counties. That still is warned. It's set to expire at 9:30 today. So we can see if that will expire at the time it's set to. It does appear to be leaving the area, and I'm getting a few reports here, like I was seeing earlier, of the wind speed strong enough to take some trees down. So give me a second to see where that has happened. Again, anywhere within these storms is definitely strong enough to take trees down. That's the main concern with what we're watching here. Our wind speeds up to 60 miles per hour is enough to start a lot of debris and certainly take down some trees and power lines. So let me just kind of take you out while I look for that information here so you can have the big picture while I'm looking at that as well. But since this storm here is kind of leaving our polygon, I will go ahead and time out where it's heading next, just because the National Weather Service hasn't extended this warning any further, but this is still a fairly robust storm as well. When it was warned, it was moving at, I think, also around 25 miles per hour. Just give me a second to confirm that information for you. All right, so here we go. It does look like this storm is moving even slower. So it was originally moving southwest at 10 miles per hour. So very, very slow moving storm this one was, which is why we saw it sit over Shady Dale for such a long period of time. But in the next few minutes, it will be heading towards Phoenix, Note, and Hillsborough. The National Weather Service hasn't extended this warning again, so hopefully wind speeds as it makes its way over towards this region will be decreasing back to 40 to 50 miles per hour. But again, still very strong, even if it's not warned. That's certainly still enough to knock up some debris from some trees, maybe take down some limbs or the entire tree itself as well. So definitely towards Phoenix, Note, Hillsborough, this is where that cell is heading next. But again, very slow moving. We'll likely see effects from this over in Hillsborough in the next 30 minutes, maybe not even the next 20. So still moving very, very slow over here. And we will actually check back and see if we've had any more reports of hail, just because it's been a moment since we did check for that. Still hail staying shy of an inch in diameter, which is good news. Anything below severe thunderstorm warning threshold is good news for us, because hail an inch in diameter is about quarter size, sizable enough to do some damage. So when we're not seeing hail of that size, that's always a positive sign. Hopefully it means that our storm is weakening or really won't meet that threshold for severe weather as it continues to track over these regions. Give me just a second to drink some water. So that is really the area where we're still seeing some hail over here towards Monticello, seeing the most intense impacts, high rain over here, heading towards Sanfordville in the next few minutes. Eatonton about to see some very high rain as well. And again, this second cell behind it, heading right towards Shady Dale as it makes its way in to Jasper County. So lots more rain heading over here towards Shady Dale as this cell sort of joins with the one that we are watching here. And still lots of lightning with this storm as well. That's a whole lot of lightning over here in Jasper County. It is definitely probably getting very loud in this region, and lots of lightning in the cell behind it as well. You can see all these lightning strikes popping up here just to the south of Covington. It is definitely getting bright and loud in these regions, even in our other warned storm over here heading towards Spalding County. It's about to start getting really loud and really bright in the next couple of minutes. Let's go ahead and put our storm back in motion to see how quickly it's now moving and if it's making any changes as it pushes towards Spalding County here. Again, still moving fairly slow in our most recent warning that has been extended again down here into our more southern counties. The wind speeds were at 60 miles per hour, but the storm itself was still moving at 35 miles per hour, which is by no means quick. We can go ahead and do the time tool one more time though for this storm as well, just to see kind of where it's heading in the next couple of minutes. 35 miles an hour. So it does still seem to be tracking over the same regions that we were watching when we did this tool the first time. Still heading towards Locust Grove, Griffin, and Zebulon next, likely in the next 10 to 20 minutes. And then it does make its way towards Monroe County as well, and towards Blount and Forsyth over the next couple of minutes as well. Closer to the 10 p.m. mark, which is again after our severe warning is set to expire, but we did see this get extended one more time. So there's a possibility that it could be extended once again as well. Over here towards Griffin is really the next area of impact that they'll be seeing some impacts in the next few minutes. Looks like Sunnyside starting to get a lot of rain and a lot of lightning and thunder, again getting very loud in these regions, and it's making its way towards Griffin. That will be the next area of impact, and Zebulon right behind that as well. And it's been a minute since I took you all kind of big picture, so let me just go ahead and do that one more time, just for anybody who's just now joining us. Again, this is really the only region that we're watching at the moment is over here towards north central Georgia. We're watching this line come in from North Georgia and make its way across central Georgia. Now, again, we aren't exactly sure how well it's going to hold up as it does sweep its way into our southern counties. So there likely could be some more warnings extended further to our south as this line does make its way down. But also this storm really could break apart as it pushes down as well. If it pushes into an environment that's not conducive for it to continue, we also can see it weaken as it does make its way down. So we'll hope for that. Again, we'll prepare for the possibility of a few more severe thunderstorm warnings extended as it makes its way down. But anything less than that will be good news for us here. We can continue to just hope that as it does make its way further south, that it doesn't really have the environment to sustain itself any longer. And the National Weather Service again has expired the severe thunderstorm watch for all of the areas that they were watching in North Georgia, which is good news because after this does make its way through, so after this line pushes its way through Jasper and Putnam counties here, the areas that we're watching, after it finally push its way through, then we aren't really worried about any more severe weather threats after that. You can see a few showers behind the line. Other than that, no real chance for severe weather afterwards. So that's the good news. We really will be able to issue the all clear in these regions after it does push through, and you can get a good night's sleep and you won't really have to worry about it after that. But again, very slow moving. So they're still sitting over the same regions right now. And let me go ahead and actually put our storms back in motion so we can see the progression of where they're heading at this time. So yeah, really over here in Jasper County, I'm thinking that they're going to have some very high rainfall totals in a few minutes because this storm has just been sitting over the same region. And if you're tracking with us since the beginning, we saw this area, this cell sort of pop up over here towards Covington and then push its way into Jasper County behind the cell that we were already tracking with the National Weather Service. So yeah, lots of rain coming down over this region right now. Lots of rain over here also making its way towards Butts over here in Henry and making its way towards Spalding. That is also one of my main concerns over here towards I-75. This was the concern yesterday, just how much rain these storms are going to pack in terms of rain on the roads. Definitely causes the potential for some flash flooding. So out on the highways in these regions, it's important to pay attention to where these storms are heading just because it definitely could cause some concerns for driving at the moment. Again, this storm here starting to make its way into Griffin, tracking towards Zebulon in the next couple of minutes, but definitely making its way all over Spalding County here. It does look like some of those areas of bright red reflectivity where we were getting the heaviest rainfall is starting to dissipate a little bit. So hopefully that's a good sign. You kind of can see this area of lighter green coming in and lighter yellows. That's usually where we're seeing lower reflectivity, which means we're not seeing as high rainfall rates. So hopefully that's a good sign. Again, maybe some signs of weakening over here in Spalding County. And let me take you a little bit wider so we can look at both of these storms at the same time. Again, our storm over here in Jasper, Putnam, and Morgan counties is set to expire around 10 p.m. to 9:30, excuse me, which is in the next 4 minutes. And we haven't seen it be extended for any other regions here in central Georgia, which is always a positive sign. So hopefully, as we get closer and closer to that expiration time, we can sort of wave the all clear for those counties here. after that second cell does make its way across again. And I'm not so sure if we really would be able to see anything from our Macon sky cam. At this time, the line might be a little bit too far out for us, but I'm wondering if maybe I can give you guys a visual of what we're seeing right now. If it was brighter outside, we definitely would be able to, but oh yeah, you can certainly see some lightning here. Let me go actually flip this on the sky cam for all of us here. We'll see if we can see some lightning with this storm. Again, yeah, starting to see a few flashes out in the distance. This is a storm with a lot of lightning, so definitely creating a light show over the night sky right now. Definitely getting very loud in the regions that it's beginning to roll over. Again, I'm using the Macon Skycam, but this storm is still very, very far out. In fact, lots of people probably would confuse this with heat lightning, which we know is actually not real. It's storms that are very far in the distance that you can still see the lightning from. So not really a concern for Bibb County at the moment, just kind of using the Macon Skycam to give you a visual of kind of all the lightning that we have going on within this storm. All right, we do have an update to the severe thunderstorm warnings over here in Butts County. It does look like they have extended our polygon to include Butts, Henry, Jasper, and Monroe counties, and let me make sure that's it. And those are the 4 counties that this new warning has been issued for. And you can hear our thunderstorm beeps going on over it right now. So that is this area over here towards McDonough making its way towards Butts County. That's probably the area of main concern, seeing the highest wind speeds in this region over here. And again, I did mention this earlier, but if you haven't been tracking with us the whole time, if you can see this sort of green boundary that's extending from these thunderstorms, that is kind of what's causing these cells to continue to spur up. This is essentially almost like a mini front, and it gives all of the moisture and the energy that we have in the area the lift that they need to create new cells. So whenever we see an outflow boundary like this, definitely means we could be seeing some new cells pop up ahead of it in the next couple of minutes. So definitely an indication that these are still some pretty robust thunderstorms as they make their way across. And that is definitely also confirmed by the fact that the National Weather Service is still warning some of these storms here. So I'm just going to go ahead and take a minute to look at our wind speeds as well. It does say reports up to 60 miles per hour. And I am seeing maybe a little bit, an area here that I'm watching over towards McDonough, just in case. And let me get the further details on that. It does also look like they have canceled the severe thunderstorm warning for Clayton, Coweta, Fayette, Henry, and Spalding counties here, or Spalding, Georgia, excuse me. So behind where this line is coming through, the area over here towards the north where we were watching before, that warning has expired. So again, I mentioned that before, but after this line does make its way through, you really truly are in the clear because you can see big picture here. There's nothing really coming in behind it. So that's a very positive thing, is that once you're in the clear here, you really will be in the clear. So give me a second just to pull up the winds here on my phone. I'm just comparing it with the data that I have on my phone as well, just to make sure I'm giving you the most accurate information here. I'll put these back in motion as well. Oh, and it does look like our severe thunderstorm warning has expired for Jasper, Putnam, and Morgan counties as well, excuse me, which is good news. So this cell that we were watching just here to the east over these counties has expired. Again, these are still some pretty strong storms as they come through, but it's always a positive sign when there's no more warning on them, meaning the wind speeds aren't at threshold to be considered severe. Also, likely not really seeing any more hail. And you can see, even as I'll flip the lightning off for a better visual, as it sweeps further into Jasper County, those darker red reflectivity values start to become that lighter orange, then that lighter yellow. That's when we can tell that this storm is weakening, because we're not seeing as heavy rainfall and certainly not seeing any more reports of hail in those areas as well. So that's kind of an indication of weakening, which is a good sign as this line does kind of make its way down here into Milledgeville and Gray over here in Baldwin and Jones counties. You're likely going to see some lightning and hear some thunder, but hopefully our wind speeds will stay lower in the 40 to 50 mile per hour range as the storm gets ready to sweep over those regions. But again, our areas over here, I'm just going to go local for a second because this area over here towards McDonough still got some very strong winds. If I pull up our reflectivity here, definitely some intense winds, maybe even an area here just that I want to bring your attention to towards Locust Grove. Just some very, very, very intense wind speeds here. And let me actually make sure I'm just not really getting any reports of rotation here. It does seem like we do have lots of areas of debris, which means that we've got winds strong enough to take down some trees, maybe even some power lines. But I am paying attention to this region here. So yes, very high wind speeds in this region, up to 60 miles per hour over here past McDonough towards Locust Grove. Definitely getting some really intense wind speeds, I'd say enough to take down some trees or even some power lines in this region. I am getting some questions about a time track. I absolutely can do that for you all. So let me sort of time out what this storm is going to be doing over the next few minutes. Again, reminder, these are very slow moving storms, definitely not as fast as storms we've seen in the past, as storms we even have seen yesterday. This storm right now only moving at 30 miles per hour, so very similar to the last warning that we had here, but I'll kind of give you a picture of where these are heading. It does appear that they are still moving southeast, yep, at 30 miles per hour. So it does look like in the next few minutes we're looking at areas over here in Williamson, Jackson, Cabanis, Barnesville, Forsyth, and maybe even Bolingbroke past the warning time. But again, very, very slow moving. These could have a big change by the time it gets to those areas, maybe not as severe as they are at the moment, but those are sort of the next areas of impact. I'd be paying attention over in Williamson, Zebulon, and Jackson specifically, just because those are sort of before the time that the severe thunderstorm warning is set to expire, so those are certainly regions that could still have severe thunderstorm impacts in the next couple of minutes. Areas past that, we certainly will see if we are still under the severe threshold, if this storm continues to be severe as it makes its way down, but hopefully as it gets closer to its expiration date that the National Weather Service will have it set to expire at that time. And give me a second to coordinate with our production team just about what's going on here. All right, thank you so much for your patience. Just making sure that everybody on the 13 team is on the same page as we watch this storm. And we are good to go. So again, those are the regions I'm really paying attention to, and I do want to emphasize the threat of these wind speeds. That kind of is our main concern at the moment. I'll take you out in a wider frame as well, just to kind of talk about this storm from a big picture once again. Making its way into our most northern counties at a very, very slow pace, but with some really, really high wind speeds. So again, this is enough damage. We've seen reports all across North Georgia earlier in the day of trees down, power lines down, certainly enough to take down some branches or just generally stir up some debris in these areas. So that is one of my main concerns as these storms do begin to roll across, is just how high these wind speeds really are. Up to 60 miles per hour is the actual reported value. And again, that is certainly fast enough to do some damage. So that's my main concern here over in this region where we're watching towards Pike, Lamar, Upson, Butts, Jasper, Monroe counties. That is what I want to pay attention to as this specific cell sweeps closer to those areas. And again, we saw lots of lightning when we just checked in with our Macon Sky Cam. We were watching lots of lightning strikes pop up on the cam as well. But again, these cells are still moving very slow. I'd imagine they won't really be past the Jones, Baldwin, Monroe area for at least another hour or so, moving very, 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 very slow. Probably be another hour or two before they make their way towards Bibb County and downtown Macon. So certainly, hopefully, after these finally do make their way past Jasper County, poor Jasper County still getting tons and tons of rain and lots of lightning at this time. Once this cell that they are still sitting under finally does make its way out, then they will finally be in the all clear, noticing nothing more popping up behind it, which is great news. We did see this cell over Covington sort of come down in the area. That's what we were paying attention to earlier. But hopefully starting to enter the all clear as this cell does finally make its way past, because again, I mentioned this a few times, but there's really nothing going on behind the cell. You can see here just a little bit of light rain that was making its way towards Athens that even now is dissipating at this time. So not even rain bands kind of hanging out behind these storms. It's really just a lot of clearing, and even further confirmation that after these storms move through, the National Weather Service has been expiring all the severe thunderstorm watches behind it. So that's even better news, because that means that they aren't even concerned that these areas are going to see further severe weather throughout the night. So hopefully after these storms do make their way through and we can expire all of these severe thunderstorm warnings, you all can still get a good night's rest and sort of let your guard down here in the northern counties. And I'm going to switch over and see if I can get any idea of how much rain is coming down on these regions, just because we are still kind of over here towards the I-75 and even parts of I-20 region. So I just want to be cognizant of how much rain is coming down in these areas. Looking like our highest regions of rainfall are about 3 inches of rain just northwest of Spalding County here. So that cell that we're watching make its way towards Griffin and towards Zebulon, that's where we're about to see some really high rainfall rates. And I know as it pushes closer towards Butts, Lamar and Monroe counties, that's where we start to worry about how much rainfall is coming down on I-75. So I do kind of want to bring your attention to that as well with that specific cell as it makes its way towards the highway, just because that is when we start to have some concerns towards flash flooding, especially for drivers out on the road. That's really just the main threat at that time. So that's what our rainfall totals are looking like. And again, that storm is still kind of making its way over here towards Spalding and Griffin and Zebulon, just towards I-75 generally in that region. So certainly a lot of rainfall set to come down in just a few minutes. And that's kind of a look back at our reflectivity. Again, lots and lots and lots of rain coming down and lots of lightning too. And I'm going to see if we're seeing any more lightning on our Macon sky cam, just so I can give you one more visual of just what a light show this is truly creating. And it does look like we're still seeing a whole lot of lightning on our Macon cam. So let me flip that back over for you. Hopefully we can catch a few strikes here. Again, I'm showing the Macon sky cam just to kind of give you a visual of what this is looking like outside. But this isn't really having any impacts for Bibb County at the moment. It's just far enough in the distance where we can see all of the lightning. Again, I said this earlier, you might even confuse this for heat lightning, which we know is actually just lightning from storms in the distance. But yes, certainly the light show coming from these storms, also very loud, likely in the regions that they're over. But that is a pretty fascinating sight there, all those lightning strikes over there in the distance. Let me go ahead and switch back over to our reflectivity, kind of zooming back in on our storms, give you a picture of what we have going on still. You can see even as we flick back to our reflectivity how slow this line is moving, how slow it's made its way from the metro area to the central Georgia area, just moving extremely, extremely slow. The National Weather Service says these storms are moving at 35 miles per hour, so they're really sitting over the same regions for quite some time here. It does look like the National Weather Service is watching the storm here the closest. This one over here, let me get my pointer. This one over here towards Griffin, Zebulon, Jackson, and this region here, that's kind of where their eyes are the most. Obviously, that's where we still have severe thunderstorm warnings, but this looks to be the most robust area at the time. We're still having wind reports up to 60 miles per hour, which, as I mentioned, still certainly is strong enough to take down some trees or knock over some branches, or certainly some power lines as well. So that is our main threat with those here. Again, we haven't really checked on hail in a few minutes. Do have some reports of hail, towards Monticello, Eatonton, and Stanfordville, but again, we're still below that threshold of 1 inch. That's when we're looking at quarter-sized hail, is when we're closer to 1 inch. So it's good news if we're anything below that, because that usually means that it's not quite sizable enough to do a lot of damage. So that's good news. It's always a positive when we have one factor in a severe thunderstorm warning that is not creating a whole lot of damage. So good news is on the hail report, still not seeing very sizable hail at this time. And again, this is still moving very slow, so actually I'll go ahead and re-time out where this storm is heading and when, just to kind of retouch you all back in with what the areas of impact are next. This is going out at 30 miles per hour. So our areas here towards Zebulon, Jackson, Berner, and Forsyth are kind of the next areas of target. Forsyth is about on the cusp of our polygon here. This is set to expire around 10:15 tonight, and it's set to reach Forsyth around 10:14. So again, we could see changes in this storm by the time it rolls over into that region. But over here in Zebulon, Jackson, Berner, those are the regions that I would still be paying attention to, because this still could be a severe thunderstorm warning as it makes its way across those regions. Again, not making its way towards the Bibb area likely until another hour or so. So we could still be tracking this line generally for the next little while. Again, let me go big picture one more time. This whole line we could be tracking at least for a few more hours. The hope here is that as it moves further south into central Georgia, that it loses its steam, maybe becomes less organized, so that we don't see as many severe thunderstorm warnings issued or continued as it pushes its way down. That is the main hope that we have for this line. But again, it's still possible to see some impacts from this storm over the next few hours. I said this in my forecast earlier today, but models had this line moving so slowly that we could see impacts until the early morning hours of Wednesday. So kind of further south here towards Warner Robins and Dublin, towards our more southern areas, that's where we could still see some impacts in the early morning hours. But the hope here is that this line sort of disorganizes as it comes through. We did see a little bit of disorganization earlier when it was in the metro area. So again, the hope is that it does the same thing for us here. But still pretty robust in the areas that we are still warned, so we're going to keep watching those. Again, high winds up to 60 miles per hour. We did see a little bit of hail earlier, which does seem to be winding down. So right now looking like rainfall, wind, and lightning is kind of our biggest concern. We can do an updated rainfall rate here. See if we've got any more updated totals for you. Still looking like our areas over here just northwest of Spalding is where we're still seeing the highest rainfall rates. Over here towards Shady Dale, remember they had a lot of training of these storms over the same regions, just shy of 2 inches over there in that region. So definitely that's my concern for the roads towards I-75. Again, I will go ahead and check back on model runs for later in the night. It's just a little bit hard to say how long this line will hold together. Right now, models do have it falling apart kind of after this line pushes through, but it's still holding together a little more than I would like at the moment. So we definitely could still see some impacts down here towards Bibb, Crawford, Twiggs, Wilkinson, Washington counties. Certainly we will see these storms make their way into Baldwin and Jones, Monroe, Lamar, Pike, Upson in the next hour or so, but hoping that it begins to fall apart as it tracks further to the south here. And again, I'll sort of show you what our SPC outlook was like for the day, which this is kind of part of the reason that I'm hoping that these storms do fall apart as they push further south. The SPC did outline our northeastern counties in the level 2 risk, as opposed to the rest of our counties just sitting in a level 1 risk. So the hope here is that they did issue this with the idea that it would weaken as it pushes its way further south. So certainly this is an indication that hopefully that is what it's on track to do. Again, some of these models still showing that it could hold together a little bit, at least into these regions here in Jones, Baldwin, Monroe, Lamar, Pike, and Spalding counties. And I will go ahead and time that out for you one more time here, even with these cells that aren't warned, just so you kind of get an idea here towards Jones and Baldwin County when this storm is kind of heading your direction. Is still moving at 30 miles per hour here. So this cell, again, not a warned cell, but still packing some impacts, lots of lightning, lots of heavy rain, and we did see some reports of hail just south of Monticello earlier, making its way towards Etheridge, Gray, Coopers, Ivy, but again, very slow. We'll see impacts from this likely over the next hour, all the way towards Wilkinson and Twiggs County. That this storm will be making its way towards you in the next hour, and again, it could be weakening by then. That is the hope. We just continue to hope that as we get less reports of hail and things like that, that hopefully this storm will continue to weaken as it pushes further south. And I'm just getting some reports here in the National Weather Service chat, so just give me a moment to make sure everything is okay. All right, still looking like everything is on track the same way that it has been for the past few minutes. And give me one more moment. I need to coordinate one more thing with our production team. And for now, I'll also go ahead and time out where this cell that was still warned is heading next as well. Again, this also is moving southeast at 30 miles per hour. I just cannot emphasize how slow that is. We really won't see impacts here, even in Bibb County, for likely the next hour. So this is kind of where it's heading next. Still has yet to kind of make its way fully into Zebulon. That's the next area where it's really going to be heading in the next 15 minutes or so. And then towards Meansville, closer to 10 o'clock, Hannett's Mill, closer to 10:20, and then again all the way down here towards Bibb, towards Lake Topiscoffee and downtown Macon. That's not really happening until another hour or so as this storm just continues to move very, very, very slowly. So let me go ahead and go big picture one more time just so you kind of see this line making its way down. Again, this severe thunderstorm warning that we're watching here for Spalding County as well, that's all supposed to expire at 10 p.m. So we're kind of watching here over the next few minutes to see if they do extend this warning any further. But because of how slow it's moving, these are still the main areas that we're watching. Again, Lamar, Pike, Upson, parts of Monroe counties. Spalding is the one seeing the most of the impacts at the moment, lots of lightning. But that is kind of the regions that is in the polygon is still kind of the regions that are of most concern for next area of impact. I am seeing some questions about the cell behind Monticello here. Again, this is not warned either, but that means our wind speeds are still below the threshold of warning level, which means they're up to 40 to 50 miles per hour. 60 is our warning threshold. So this is still definitely capable of taking down some tree limbs or blowing some debris onto the road, things like that. But when we're not in the warning threshold, that means we're not really seeing any hail and certainly not seeing those wind speeds as high as they could be. So that's actually positive news. As it rolls back over Monticello, seeming like, honestly, this training of rain is my main concern for this region over here in Jasper County, just because of how much rain they've already had from this pretty slow moving storm, and now they're having some more rain being packed on top of it. So kind of my concern is over towards the roads over here in Monticello. Definitely could see a whole lot of rainfall in these areas. Rainfall totals beginning to pile up on the road specifically, but certainly out of that severe threat at the moment, which is positive news. And I will say we are getting ready for the 10 p.m. show, so I likely will hop off here in just a few minutes and continue this coverage on CW, on 13 WMAZ, so that we can continue to cover it during our actual newscast. And again, I'll check the latest model runs as well, hoping that this storm just continues to kind of weaken as it pushes south. That really is the hope here. And a few models really do indicate that that is what is going to happen. So hopefully these are really the only counties that we have to worry about at the moment. But again, this cell here over here making its way into Jones and Baldwin, not warned, but still pretty strong. So they'll be seeing some impacts here in the next, again, 30 minutes to maybe an hour. This storm is moving very, very, very slowly. And then the areas that are still in the polygon, the counties that I'm concerned about this storm heading to next, Pike, Lamar, Upson, Monroe, those areas, again, still kind of waiting for the next hour or so to see some impacts. I would say after that, likely we could still see some impacts here in Bibb, Crawford, Twiggs, Wilkinson, maybe even Washington if this storm extends further east. Even over here in Hancock, they're seeing a little bit of a cell start to pop up here towards the east, heading towards Sparta. Again, not warned, but certainly still a thunderstorm, and a thunderstorm capable of producing some damaging winds, maybe even some hail and some lightning as well. So, big picture, that's kind of what the line looks like as it sweeps across. But just continuing to hope that it really does weaken as it makes its way further south. Again, very, very slow moving. The storm itself moving at 35 miles per hour if you are just joining us, but the actual wind speeds within the storm in our polygon areas here up to 60 miles per hour. So over here towards Zebulon, starting to see some impacts from this storm now as it makes its way into Pike County. Over here towards Lamar County, starting to see some impacts soon. Barnesville will be the next area of impact. High Falls over here in Monroe County, starting to see some impacts as well. Berner, Juliet in the next couple of minutes. Round Oak starting to see some impacts as well. Lake Sinclair, another little cell heading that way over Stanfordville right now. Some areas that we were watching that are now kind of coming into the clear here. Shady Dale finally getting a break from all of this rain and the thunderstorm warning that they did have earlier. So Shady Dale starting to still having some rain, but starting to come into the clear here. Monticello will be shortly be following behind them after this cell does push past over here towards McDonough, starting to see that storm clear out. Griffin will be clearing out over the next couple of minutes, just waiting for this most intense part of the storm to make its way past there. And again, nothing behind these storms. So once this line really does make its way through, you really are in the clear. You're good to go to bed for the rest of the night. We're not expecting anything else to pop up behind it. It's just this initial line as it makes its way across. This is really where the threat lies. So after these regions do finally make their way out of the warning, that's when you really can kind of go ahead and issue the all clear and just get some rest for the rest of the night, because I know we have had a lot of long nights in terms of weather over the past couple of days. And I will flip over to our Macon Sky Cam just one more time, just curious if we can still catch any lightning with this storm. And there's some flashes there. You can even see the big cumulonimbus cloud behind all of the lightning, and definitely kind of an ominous sight as it comes towards you. It's a lot of lightning in this storm, making the sky very, very bright, also probably very loud where it is sitting over. Again, I'm watching from Bibb County in downtown Macon, but I definitely want you guys to know that this is not where the storm is sitting at the moment, just kind of where the storm is still visible at this point in time. So that's kind of a picture of what things look like from outside. But again, I'll flip back over to our reflectivity one more time just to give you a picture of the radar, because I am going to have to hop off here in just a minute, and I will continue coverage again on 13 WMAZ. Our 10 p.m. show is set to start in 5 minutes, so I do need to go ahead and get prepared for that. But that is the picture right now. Again, this cell that's not warned heading into Jones and Baldwin counties right now, and the storm that we are watching under a warning right now making its way across Butts, heading into Monroe, Lamar, and Pike counties, maybe Upson County in the next few minutes as well. So those are the areas that you're going to want to continue to pay attention to as the storm still rolls over those regions. But I will check back in with you and continue the coverage on the air on 13 WMAZ. So I'll see you there in just a few minutes.